My wife didn't trust me and thought that I communicate. Not really. And not only with other girls. She cooked. The turn of the story will surprise you very much. Held my hand in public. Enjoy watching. And smile when I came home from work. By all outward appearances, we were just another happy couple in their late 20s, building something. A life, maybe even a future. But there was always something under the surface with her. A flicker in her eyes when I glanced at my phone. A question that didn't quite sound like a joke. So, who's that texting you? Even when it was my mom. She didn't trust easily. I learned that early on. I chalked it up to her past. Some ex who had really done a number on her, and figured time would smooth it out. I gave her my phone whenever she wanted, left it unlocked on the table. Always answered, always explained. It didn't matter. She'd ask things like, "You weren't looking at her, were you?" after dinner out, or "Why you still follow that girl from college?" I'd roll my eyes, try to laugh it off, but a part of me was always stunned. I had never once cheated, never once lied, never even thought about it. I was a creature of habit. Work, home, maybe a gym visit. Occasionally a night with the guys, but always checked in. Always sent the heading home text. But the accusations didn't stop. Subtle, sometimes. Other times, not so much. Once, she got upset because a waitress smiled at me too long. Another time, because I commented congrats on an old friend's engagement photo. No matter what I did, it wasn't enough. I started to feel like a suspect in a crime I hadn't committed. It wore me down, made me quiet. I started avoiding group dinners, avoided friendliness with anyone Anna didn't already know. Even with all that, things didn't improve. If anything, her suspicion became quieter, heavier, like a storm always brewing just out of sight. Then came the morning everything shifted. I'd gotten up earlier than usual. She was still asleep, her phone on the edge of the nightstand buzzing quietly. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear, but the screen lit up with a message from someone named Marina Nail Polish that said, "So, you ready? Today's the day we finally catch your man." I just stood there, staring at the text. My first thought was, what the hell is this? My second, don't overreact. Maybe it's something else. But it wasn't. I knew her too well. I could feel the smug satisfaction she'd wear when her trap worked. She never said anything outright, but I could tell she wanted to prove something. Not to me, maybe, but to herself. So I played dumb, kissed her forehead, made us breakfast, acted normal. Inside, though, I was boiling. If she didn't trust me after all this time, fine. I'd give her a show. I'd play her little game, but on my terms. She barely messaged me that day. Just a bland, "Hope works okay," and then radio silence for hours. I decided to stop updating her too. Let her stew in whatever fantasy she was building. After my shift, I stopped at a cafe near home. Something I rarely did. I figured if today was the day, according to Marina, then someone would show up, and someone did. She walked in like a movie scene. Long black dress, tall heels, blonde hair falling down her shoulders like silk. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared, like she had done this before. She got her drink, glanced around like she was looking for someone, then locked eyes with me, smiled, walked over. "Hey," she said, like we're old friends. "Do you mind if I sit?" And just like that, the trap was set. But what they didn't know was I wasn't the one getting caught. She introduced herself as Alina. No last name, no explanation, just that. I nodded, pretended not to notice the awkward way she kept looking at her phone screen between sentences, as if someone was feeding her lines remotely. She was attractive, no doubt. Too attractive to randomly approach a guy in work clothes, sipping coffee with tired eyes. Her teeth perfect. Her makeup subtle but clearly practiced. And yet, beneath the smile, I could see it. The strain in her cheeks, the slight fidgeting in her hands, the glances toward the door every few minutes. I smiled back, played along. "So, Alina," I said, taking a sip of my drink, "what brings you to this side of town?" She shrugged casually. "I like this cafe." Liar. It wasn't even a popular place, more of a halfway stop between my work and home. I'd never seen her here before, and something told me I never would again. She leaned in a little, playing a role, the flirting just slightly too eager. I fed into it, responded with charm, let her laugh at my jokes, let the conversation breathe. And as the minutes passed, I started to notice the smallest cracks in her act, the way she froze when I asked her basic questions, where she worked, where she lived, what she liked to do for fun. She dodged everything, redirected to me, kept trying to flatter me. It was clumsy and almost sweet in its own way, if it weren't so insulting. Because the truth was, I wasn't mad she sent someone to test me. I was mad that she thought I'd fail. We wrapped up after about 40 minutes. She got my number, or rather, I gave it, knowing that it would end up in Anna's hands within minutes. I even smiled and said, text me sometime, before walking out like nothing happened. When I got home, Anna was sitting on the couch, curled up with her laptop open in front of her. She looked up at me and smiled, but I could see it. She wasn't watching Netflix. She was watching me. How was work? She asked, all casual. Busy, I replied, kicking off my shoes. Grabbed a coffee on the way home. Placed down on 12. She nodded, said nothing else, and I said nothing either. That night, in bed, I watched her pretend to scroll her phone while she kept stealing glances at me. I knew she was waiting for me to mention Alina, waiting for me to crack. I didn't. Instead, I turned away and fell asleep with a smirk on my face. The next day, the real show began. Around noon, I got a message from Alina. Hey, smiley face. Want to grab a drink later? I stared at it. Then, exactly as I planned, I messaged back, sure, let me know when. Within 5 minutes, Anna texted me, hey, I'm going to be busy later. Won't be able to talk much tonight. Of course. I responded with a thumbs up and went back to work. That night, I met up with Alina again, this time at a quiet wine bar a few blocks out. She looked more relaxed, maybe thinking her trap was working. I played the part of the interested guy. I let her flirt. I let her laugh. I let her hand linger a bit too long when she touched my arm. But I also made sure not to cross any lines. I never mentioned being in a relationship. I never touched her. I kept everything just ambiguous enough. After about an hour, I stood up and said I had to go. You're leaving already? She asked, tilting her head. I smiled. Yeah, early day tomorrow. Outside, I got into my car and recorded a short video on my phone. I held up the day's newspaper, said the date, and stared directly into the lens. I know what's going on, I said calmly, and I've known from the beginning. If you're watching this, Anna, just know I never cheated. I never even got close. But you never trusted me, and that's the real betrayal. I saved the video, backed it up, and went home. Anna was already asleep when I walked in. I stood by the door for a while, just watching her. So peaceful, so unaware. And yet, she had orchestrated all of it. I turned out the lights, crawled into bed beside her, and closed my eyes. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done playing defense. Now, it was my turn to make the next move. The next few days passed like a strange, silent chess match. Anna continued to play her part. Sweet, supportive, loving. She made breakfast, asked about my day, gave me those long, searching looks that were supposed to feel intimate but now just felt like surveillance. And me? I played the perfect husband. I did the dishes. I folded the laundry. I responded to her affection with enough warmth to keep up appearances, but always left just a bit of distance between us. Enough to make her wonder. Enough to make her stew in the uncertainty she had created. She didn't bring up Alina. Not once. And neither did I. But I knew she was waiting for me to crack, to confess, to stumble, to slip up, but I didn't. I wanted her to feel what I had felt, the slow erosion of trust, the gnawing sense that something was being hidden, the emotional vertigo of second-guessing everything you thought you knew about the person lying next to you. Let her feel it. A week passed, then another, and just as I expected, the game started to shift. She became more affectionate, more apologetic in tone. She'd initiate more conversations, suggest movie nights, ask if I want to go out somewhere, things she hadn't done in months before this all began. I could tell she was trying to recalibrate, to reel me back in before whatever she thought I'd done went too far. She wanted control again, but it was already gone. One evening, I came home to find the table set with candles, soft music playing, and her in the dress she wore on our first anniversary. She smiled nervously and said she made lasagna, my favorite. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured the wine. We ate in silence for a bit before she finally broke. I feel like we've been distant lately, she said, not meeting my eyes. Do you? I replied casually, twirling pasta on my fork. I hadn't noticed. That stung her. I saw it, but I didn't offer comfort. She tried again. I miss us. I miss how we used to be. I looked at her for a long moment. How did we used to be? Her face tensed, but she smiled through it. We used to laugh more, talk about everything. I felt safe, trusted. The irony hit so hard I nearly laughed. Instead, I said, you know, trust is a funny thing, hard to get back once it's gone. A shadow passed over her face. What do you mean? I said, setting down my fork, that some people spend so much time trying to catch their partner doing something wrong. They end up pushing them to the very thing they feared in the first place. She said nothing. Is that what you were doing? I added, voice calm. Trying to catch me? Her shoulders tightened. No. I met her, I said, cutting her off. Alina. Her eyes widened, and in that instant, everything shattered. The game, the performance, the lies. You, she stammered. How do you? You think I'm an idiot? I asked softly. You think I didn't recognize a setup when I saw one? She began again, but I stood up from the table. You didn't trust me, I said, shaking my head. After everything, after how hard I worked to make this relationship feel stable, secure, this is what you came up with? A test. Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared. Of what? I snapped. Of being wrong about me? Or being right about yourself? She didn't answer. Couldn't. I didn't fail your test, I said, grabbing my jacket. But you did. Where are you going? She whispered. I paused at the door. Look back. To someone who didn't need to test me to know who I am. And then I left. Out on the street, the air felt colder than I expected. I didn't go to Alina that night. A message I drove Alina. For hours. Still instead. Up for that drink? Windows down, music low. Not yet. Letting the city pass because I had one more headlights and questions. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about understanding what the hell just happened to my life. By the time I pulled into the quiet corner of a parking lot near the river, it was almost 2 a.m. I turned off the engine, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. Then, without really thinking about it, I pulled out my phone and called her. Not Anna. Alina. She picked up on the third ring. Her voice was cautious, maybe even hopeful. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I need to know something. There was a pause and, all right, was it her idea? Another pause. Yes. I sighed. How much did she tell you about me? Not much, just that she suspected you were cheating, that you'd been distant. She didn't want to confront you directly, so she wanted a test. I told her it was a terrible idea. But you still did it. I needed the money, she said, not defensive, just flat. She offered me a lot to flirt with you, to try and catch you in something. I told her I'd never sleep with you, that I'd never cross a line, but she was obsessed. Said if I could get proof you were a liar, she'd finally know she was right about everything. And if I wasn't, she didn't care. She already decided. I sat in silence. Then Alina said something I didn't expect. You surprised me, How? You didn't take the bait. You played along, but you didn't fall. Most guys would have. Hell, some guys have, with far less reason. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the steering wheel. I loved her. I know. Another silence. Then she added, that night you came to my place and called her out, I realized something. You didn't come there to cheat. You came there to stop lying to yourself. That hit deeper than I liked. I didn't mean for any of this, she continued. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you figured it out. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. Thanks. I know you're mad, she said. But if you ever want to just talk, I'm here. No tests. No games. I hung up without responding, not out of rudeness, just because I didn't know what else to say. The next day was strangely quiet. Anna didn't call, didn't text. The silence between us was now a canyon, and neither of us knew how to bridge it. But she broke first. She showed up at my job, walked into the office like a ghost, and asked if we could talk outside. I followed her out to the parking lot, arms crossed. She looked different, small, like someone who knew they'd gone too far. I was wrong, she said softly. You think? I replied, not unkindly, just tired. I ruined everything, didn't I? I don't know, I said. That's not for me to say anymore. She looked up at me, her eyes rimmed red. I was scared you didn't love me the same, that you'd get bored, that someone else would give you what I couldn't. I let that hang in the air. And you thought setting a trap would fix that? I asked. She flinched. It was stupid. I know that now. But it's not just about you. It's about me. I need help. I've needed help for a long time. And instead of getting it, I try to make you the problem. I didn't respond. I'm not asking for another chance, she said finally. I'm just asking for your forgiveness. Someday, when you're ready. She turned to leave, then stopped. You were a better man than I gave you credit for. She walked away. And for once, I didn't chase her. I didn't talk to Anna again after that. Not in person. Not over the phone. Not even a text. Whatever we had was a finished book now. One I didn't have the strength to reread or the desire to rewrite. But the silence wasn't hollow anymore. It was space. And space meant clarity. For the first time in years, I started waking up without anxiety sitting on my chest like a cinder block. I got to the office early. I focused. I hit the gym again. Hell, I even started cooking meals that didn't come from the microwave. But there was one name I couldn't shake from my head. Alina. I didn't know her anything. She had, after all, agreed to be part of that ridiculous trap. But she also hadn't played her part the way Anna wanted. And more than that, she'd seen me. Really seen me. Not the man Anna feared I was, but the man I tried every damn day to be. So I texted her. Just 3 words. Are you free? She replied a minute later. Meet me where it started. It wasn't hard to guess where that was. The cafe from the first day. The one with the terrible lighting, but amazing croissants. When I arrived, she was already there. Same table. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Black hoodie. She looked more real than anyone I'd known in months. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said as I sat down. I almost didn't. But you did, she said with a small smile. We ordered coffee, sat in silence for a while, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like waiting for the right time to breathe. Finally, she asked, So what now? I looked at her. That's the question, isn't it? She raised an eyebrow. Are you here to scold me? To forgive me? To start something new? I'm not sure, I admitted. Maybe a little of all 3. She stirred her coffee. You know, I never thought this would go that far. I figured Anna would get bored and move on to another theory. But then she started getting obsessed, calling me late, asking me to do more, push harder. You didn't. No, she said, because at some point I stopped seeing you as part of the game. That landed harder than she probably intended. I let it sit for a beat. You deserve better, she added. So do you. Another pause. You said once I could talk to you. No games. No tests, I said. Does that still stand? Only if you promise not to flirt your way out of hard questions. I smiled. Deal. We walked afterward, just around the block. No hand-holding. No pressure. Just 2 people, quietly acknowledging a strange, bruised beginning that might somehow lead to something better. That night, she sent me a photo of her dog curled up in a blanket. No caption, just that, and for some reason, it meant more than 1,000 perfectly worded apologies. It meant maybe, just maybe, we'd write something honest together. Not a story of revenge. Not a story of broken trust. But a story where every chapter would be earned, not engineered. Things didn't fall apart overnight. That's not how real endings work. They don't explode. They dissolve. Anna's presence lingered like smoke in a closed room. Some days I'd wake up and still expect her side of the bed to be warm. Still instinctively glance at her coffee mug in the cabinet. Still wonder what song she'd hum while brushing her hair. But the inbox was the worst part. Every few days, I'd see her name light up my notifications. Not with apologies. Not with desperate pleas to talk. No, just strange little things. A picture of a park we once visited. A forwarded meme. A recipe for banana bread. An old photo of us. Caption only. This was a good day. No context. No explanations. Like she was trying to claw her way back in with crumbs of memory, hoping I'd follow the trail back into her arms. I didn't reply. Not once. But I read every message. Even though I hated that I still cared enough to check. Alina noticed. We'd been seeing each other. Not romantically, not yet. But enough that patterns were forming. She'd stop by after work. We'd walk her dog. Talk about books. The news. Strange things overheard on public transport. It was easy. Light. Until one night, she caught me staring too long at a blank message draft addressed to Anna. You thinking about writing back? She asked softly. No. She didn't push. But I could feel the question between us. Then why are you still staring at her name? That night, I deleted the draft. Then I blocked Anna's number. Then I turned off my phone and looked at Alina. Want to stay for dinner? She raised an eyebrow. You cook now. Don't get excited. It's mostly microwave things with a hint of effort. She laughed and nodded. We ate on the couch, her feet tucked under her. Her dog passed out like a drunk toddler at our feet. I didn't try anything. No touching. No signals. Just company. You're not over her yet, she said quietly when the credits rolled on some forgettable movie. I didn't lie. No, but I don't want her back. Alina nodded. There's a difference. I didn't expect any of this, I said. This whatever it is. She turned to face me. I didn't expect to meet someone I'd want to trust again, let alone someone who dated a woman who hired me to seduce him. I chuckled. Yeah, not exactly the rom-com meet cute. No, she smirked. More like a psychological thriller with occasional flirting. We stayed like that a while. And then, without ceremony, she leaned her head against my shoulder. No kiss. No deep moment. Just gravity, comfort, and something that felt like the beginning of something good. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't waiting to be tested. A month had passed since I wasn't defending myself against invisible crimes. I wasn't under a microscope, comparing overpriced bags of coffee. And that was enough. I saw her, across the aisle, standing by the self-checkout, wearing the same camel color coat I once bought her for her birthday. Hair pulled back. No makeup. She looked ordinary. Not the woman who tore me open. Not the person who made me question whether I was lovable or just convenient. Just a person standing under fluorescent lights, clutching a basket of yogurt and granola. She didn't see me at first, but I saw her, and I froze. Not out of fear, but because I realized there was no fire left. No anger. No longing. Just indifference. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. Her lips parted like she might speak. But I turned away before she could. 10 minutes later, she found me near the parking lot. Hey, she said, like we just run into each other at a high school reunion. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. You just did, I replied, loading bags into the trunk. She shifted awkwardly. Can we talk? I closed the trunk and leaned against the car. Talk about what? She blinked, as if that wasn't the response she expected. I wanted to explain. No, you didn't. You wanted me to ask you to. Her face reddened. That's not fair. I shrugged. Neither was what you did. Life's not big on symmetry. She stood there in silence. For once, she wasn't in control. There was no plan, no manipulation. I made a mistake, she said at last. A terrible one. I nodded. Yes, you did. I didn't mean for things to happen with Alina the way they did. I held up my hand. You don't get to rewrite this part of the story. You didn't fall into bed with her by accident. You had time, days, weeks, therapy sessions to decide what you were doing. She looked down, embarrassed. I wasn't happy. And I asked, voice rising, do you know what it's like to live under constant suspicion? To be doubted every time I smiled at someone too long or came home 5 minutes late. I didn't know how to trust, she said softly. And yet you expected it from me. You tested me, hired someone to bait me, and when it didn't work, you still broke us. She stared at me, tears welling in her eyes. I did love you. I don't think you know what that word means, I said quietly, because real love doesn't put someone on trial every day. I opened the car door. Wait, she said, can we ever be friends? That made me laugh. A short, bitter sound. Friends? No, but I'll tell you what I am now, free. She took a step back, like that word hit her harder than any insult could. Then I got in the car and drove away, watching her fade in the rearview mirror, a ghost in broad daylight. That night, I told Alina everything. She listened, no judgment, no jealousy, just presence. Then she asked, do you feel lighter now? And to my surprise, I said yes, because I did. The air between us had changed, not abruptly, not dramatically, but with the subtlety of a thread slowly unraveling from a tightly woven fabric. Days had passed since our night at her apartment, and though we texted, called, even met a few times for coffee or walks, something unspoken hovered just beneath the surface. Something raw, fragile. I caught myself watching her when she wasn't looking, how her lips moved when she talked, how her brow furrowed in thought. She was still the same woman who had listened to me at my lowest, still the one who had held me like I mattered, but now I wanted more. Not just comfort, not just distraction. I wanted the whole truth, her truth. One evening, I invited her to my place. Nothing elaborate, just takeout and wine. She wore an oversized sweater and jeans, her hair in a loose braid over one shoulder. She looked more real like that than she ever had in her polished office. We sat on the couch with our feet tucked up, a documentary playing on mute in the background, neither of us really watching. I feel like I don't even know your story, I said, finally breaking the silence. Not the therapist version. The real one. She hesitated. What do you want to know? Why her? I asked softly. Why were you involved with my girlfriend? You said it wasn't professional, and I believe you, but why? A long breath escaped her lips as she put down her wine glass. She came to me broken, she said, told me her relationship felt numb, that she felt invisible. At first, I thought it was projection. People often displace their dissatisfaction. But then, I started to believe her. Maybe because I saw myself in her. Or maybe because I was tired of boundaries, of living in a box labeled ethical. Her voice cracked on the word. She knew exactly how to slip under my skin, how to make me feel like I was the only one who saw her. But it wasn't real, she added, shaking her head. It was manipulation. She wanted power over someone, and I let her. I sat with that for a moment, not out of judgment, but because something in me recognized that feeling too well. You regret it? I asked. I regret letting her inside a part of me that should have stayed closed, she said. But I don't regret meeting you. My heart twisted. You think we're different from what you had with her? Yes, she said without hesitation. Because with you, I'm not trying to escape anything. I'm not performing. I'm just here. That was the moment I reached for her hand, not out of instinct, but intention. I wanted her to feel the silence between us as something safe, not something to run from. Later that night, she stayed over. We didn't sleep together. Not that way. She curled into my side, her head on my chest, and for the first time in weeks, my breathing matched someone else's rhythm. The next day, reality reminded us that peace is often borrowed, never owned. I came home from work to find my ex sitting on my front step. What the hell are you doing here? I asked, not hiding my disgust. I need to talk, she said. Please. I didn't want to, but I let her in. Part of me still needed closure. She stood in the middle of my kitchen like she used to, but the familiarity was poison now. She looked thinner, paler, like someone unraveling from the inside. I didn't expect to lose both of you, she said. You didn't lose me, I replied. You gave me away. I thought I was confused, she said, but it was real, what I felt for her, what I feel for her. Still, I asked, surprised. She nodded, but she left me. She said I needed to fix myself before I could be with anyone. I almost laughed at the irony. She was right. She looked at me then, really looked. You're with her now, aren't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Tears welled in her eyes. Does she make you happy? She makes me feel like myself again, I said quietly. And that's something you haven't done in a long time. There was nothing else to say. She left and I didn't follow. Later, I told her my therapist turned something more about the visit. She's not over you, I said, but she's also not right for you. Or me. She nodded, brushing her hair behind her ear. I know. Are you over her? I asked. I needed to know, not as a test, as a safeguard. She looked me dead in the eyes. I was never truly in love with her, just in love with the idea that someone needed me. But what I feel for you, she stopped, as if choosing her words carefully. It's not about being needed. It's about wanting to stay, even when I don't have to. And for once, that was enough. We sat on my balcony that night, the city lights flickering below. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her waist. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. We were both coming out of the wreckage. But for now, I didn't feel like a casualty anymore. I felt like a survivor, like someone who had finally found a kind of truth that didn't demand pain in exchange. And in that quiet, I realized something. The people who break, you are rarely the ones who stay. But sometimes, just sometimes, the ones who help you rebuild come when you least expect them, even if they arrive wearing the face of your worst betrayal. I don't know what I expected after telling my wife the truth. Maybe a breakdown, maybe anger, maybe even tears. But not this cold silence. She just stood there in the hallway, arms crossed, lips pressed so tightly they'd lost all color. Her eyes flicked past me like I was already gone. You're leaving me for her? She asked, voice hollow. No, I said, I'm leaving you because I'm done being treated like a suspect in my own home. She flinched. That landed. But I wasn't doing this to hurt her, not anymore. I was doing this because I finally saw clearly. This wasn't a relationship. It was a slow interrogation disguised as love. And I was done sitting under the lamp, waiting to prove myself for crimes I hadn't committed. I walked past her into the bedroom, started pulling my bag from under the bed. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Maybe release. I packed light, just enough to get away from the echo of our fights, the endless who is she arguments, the paranoia she disguised as care. As I zipped up, her voice cracked behind me. So that's it. No, I said calmly. This started a long time ago. This is just the ending you didn't expect. I left her standing there, framed in the hallway light. No screaming, no slamming doors. Just silence. The kind that settles in after a storm has passed and taken everything with it. I didn't go far. I drove around for almost an hour, parked outside a closed bookstore, sat with the engine idling and the city lights painting the windshield in amber and red. My phone buzzed. It was her, the woman from the test. Are you okay? The message read. Strange. How a question that simple could feel like a lifeline. I texted her the hotel address. 5 minutes later, she called. I didn't mean to start anything, she said. You didn't. I replied, she did. Silence. Then she said, want company? I didn't hesitate. She arrived in jeans and a hoodie, no makeup, hair in a messy ponytail. Not at all like the carefully styled version I first saw at the cafe. This was her. Real, honest, human, and somehow more beautiful than ever. We sat at the little round table in the hotel room with 2 paper cups of coffee between us. It was awkward at first. The elephant in the room, the failed setup, the fallout, the emotions we both buried under strategy, sat between us like a silent third party. Then she broke the ice. "You know," she said with a small smile, "I don't usually seduce married men at coffee shops." I laughed, for real this time. And I don't usually fall for setups that backfire on everyone. We talked about nothing and everything, about how strange people can be, how intentions twist and spiral out of control, how love can suffocate if there's no trust to breathe into it. Eventually, I told her everything, from the constant accusations to the stage test, to how I played along just to make a point. How, somewhere along the way, she stopped being part of the test and started becoming the reason I wanted out. She listened, not defensively, not judgmentally, just listened, and when I was done, she reached across the table and held my hand. "I believe you," she said. 3 words. 3 words I hadn't heard in years. Not truly, not without suspicion hiding behind them like shadows. That night, I didn't sleep much. We just lay there, side by side, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. 2 people wrapped in a storm. They didn't start, it's strange, but somehow survived. The way life rearranges and itself for the first time in a long time. In the weeks I didn't feel guilty. My world didn't collapse like I thought it might. It shifted, like a house settling on its foundation after a long storm. No more tiptoeing. No more checking my phone like it was evidence. No more defending myself for things I never did. She tried, of course. My ex tried to reverse it. Claimed she acted out of love, out of fear of losing me. Said the test was her last resort. She even cried during our final conversation. But the problem with burning bridges is you can't be surprised when no one walks back across them. I told her what she needed to hear, not what she wanted. "I didn't fail your test," I said quietly. "You failed our relationship." We signed the papers in silence. No lawyers. Just 2 people who had run out of excuses. I moved into a new place. Smaller. Simpler. But mine. No shadows in the corners. No tension in the air. Just space to think. To breathe. To rebuild. And then there was her. The woman from the coffee shop who was never supposed to be anything more than bait in a ridiculous setup. She showed up one evening with takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. "No test tonight," she joked. "Just terrible Chinese food." She stayed over. This time, not as a symbol of rebellion or escape, just as herself. Unfiltered, untested, and honest. She never asked about my past. Not beyond what I volunteered. She never probed for weaknesses. Never weaponized my insecurities. And maybe that's what made me fall for her, really. She didn't try to fix me. She let me fix myself. A few months passed. We traveled a bit, laughed a lot. Sometimes we talked late into the night, and sometimes we sat in silence, the kind that feels full instead of empty. And once, over coffee, she asked me, "Do you think you would have met me if it weren't for everything?" I thought about that. The paranoia, the manipulation, the woman I once loved who broke everything to prove a lie she invented in her own mind. "No," I said, "but sometimes the worst detours lead to the right destination." She smiled at that. Now, when people ask me about the divorce, I don't tell them the whole story. I just say it wasn't working out, because that's what you say when the real story is too unbelievable. How do you explain that you were tested like a lab rat by someone who claimed to love you, that they didn't trust your loyalty until you gave it to someone else, that they tried to break you and in the process set you free? You don't. You just move on, and you live.